Alright, this time we'll talk about the case of elastic collisions, which remember are the collisions in which kinetic energy is also conserved. Momentum is conserved because it's a collision, but kinetic energy is conserved in this case because the objects bounce back but retain their original shape. Things are equally constrained, at least in one dimension. It's again true that if you know the inbound velocities and you know the masses, then you do know the outbound velocities. The algebra is somewhat more messier, though, and so it's a little bit tricky. We'll consider the special but important case of one object hitting a second object that's at rest. Specifically, the incoming mass is m1 and it's moving with a velocity v sub 0. It collides elastically with mass m2, which is not moving. Using conservation of momentum and energy, we can derive the following useful equations for the outbound velocities v1f and v2f. v1f is the difference of the masses over the sum of the masses, which m1 minus m2 being the important part, all times the original velocity. And v2f is twice the mass of the inbound object over the sum of the masses, all times the velocity. The derivation of these is algebraically, let's say, interesting. It's not particularly terrible. There's some clever things can happen. It'll be in a separate video so that you can look at it if it's of interest to you. It doesn't tend to be a thing you have to be able to do on your own. A sample problem would be a 0.25 kilogram rubber ball moving at 6.7 meters per second hits a stationary bowling ball, 17 kilograms, hits it dead on and bounces off elastically. We're going to see that this is important. Oops. The dead on bit, meaning that they don't scatter. And we want to know how fast the rubber ball going after the collision. And we also want to know how fast the bowling ball is going after the collision. But we really just throw these into this formula. And we'll get that the rubber ball moves backward, bounces in the reverse direction at 6.51, and the bowling ball is moved forward, but not very much, at 0.192 meters per second. And there really isn't anything in there other than just plug and chug. There are some special cases. You can have equal masses. If the masses are equal, then we can see from that formula that the first one stops because it's m1 minus m2, but they're equal, so it's 0. And the second one then moves off with the initial velocity. So this is what happens when two equal mass objects collide elastically. The first guy comes to rest, the second guy pops off with it. If there's a very large mass hitting a small mass, then we see that m1 is very, very big and m2 is not there at all. So we get basically it's m1 minus 0 over m1 plus 0, more or less. And so v1f is almost equal to v0. It's a little bit less, but not very much. It's the heavy object just plows through, but the smaller object gets thrown at 2m1 over what is essentially also m1. So we just get twice the initial velocity and bounces off at twice the initial velocity, which is sort of interesting. All right, small mass flies off very quickly. The larger mass plows through as if it didn't even notice. And then the opposite case, this first case was something like a truck hitting a fly. If a fly bounces into a truck, then we see from here that now m1 is very small, and we have minus m2 over m2, so we get that v1f bounces back almost as fast as it was coming in, and v2f is approximately 0. These are all approximations because I'm taking limits of the idea that m1 over m2 is 0 or m1 over m2 is infinite. Because of that, if you actually plug these into the equations, it would not actually conserve momentum. And that's a lot like what friction does for energy. If we're not going to account for everything, then some of it can leak out of the system. But we see that, to summarize, if the masses are equal, then the first one stops dead and the other one takes off at exactly the same speed. If a large mass hits a small mass, the large mass plows through and the small mass gets thrown forward twice as fast. And then if a small mass hits a large mass, the small mass bounces off and the large mass doesn't even notice, doesn't move. Notice in all cases the separation speed is v0, which is interesting. For whatever reason, one of the most fascinating demonstrations of these collision things is something called Newton's cradles, which is just a bunch of masses hanging from strings that are carefully aligned. And we can see the successive elastic collision where the ball goes basically as high as the incoming ball was when it was released. If we take two masses, then we get two masses going as high. That middle one's kind of interesting. We take three masses, And we still get them switching, the middle guy now switching which role he's in, which is fascinating. And if we can do it, which is hard, we take 4. Yeah, that one's hard to do. But we can see, again, they just trade back and forth. Actually, what's going on there is quite interesting and a little strange. But now we can do it in slow motion to see what goes on precisely. All right, we can see each ball is stopping as it hits its equal mass partner. But there are some fascinating shockwave type things going on here, which is interesting. Here is the cleverer 4 at a time one. Note you can see the wave travel a little bit through them as they bump into each other. Another fascinating thing you can do is take a series of balls and magnets, and in essence what we have here is we have very strong magnets, and we have some steel balls that are lined up this way, and so we're going to get a strong attraction here, and when it stops it will kick this and we'll do the same Newton's cradle thing and kick this one off with this inbound speed, which then accelerates even faster and does the same thing. So by the time we're getting to this one, it will go pretty fast. Better to see in slow motion. Here we go with a very light initial kick. And you can see that you pick up quite an acceleration on each of those things, which is one way to boost things into high speeds.